I feel like a third grader. I like was running downstairs to get ready, and then I got this nosebleed, and it just wouldn't stop. And I was like, I don't know if I'm gonna be able to talk because I'll be like the whole time, and it just thank goodness finally stopped. Uh, uh, so
Must be the altitude in KC.
yeah, totally. It's so dry. It's so dry here. My lips are chapped. My nose is bleeding. I'm just a mess. I'm just an absolute mess. Here we go. So um, every morning I have the privilege to spend 16 minutes with my 15-year-old on the way to school. And one of the things that I've just put in place, it's a standard for us, is I open up YouTube, and YouTube knows that if I open up YouTube at 7:04, I'm looking for motivation. I'm looking for something inspirational. I'm looking for something good. So we had some Eric Thomas on there, and it was Eric Thomas's TGIM. Thank goodness it's Monday. And today's conversation was about discipline. And I really loved what he was saying about discipline. And so I wanted to today talk a little bit deeper about the mindset of discipline and what is really discipline. And he said a couple things. So I'm gonna give you 4 hacks to increase your opportunity to experience discipline. And I'm going to give you some warnings around what you may or may not believe discipline is. And he says one of the biggest ways that we fail is that we're counting on others to keep us disciplined. And he said, discipline is not external. No one can discipline you. No one can motivate you. That all has to come from within. That's why it's called self-discipline. And what I've seen over and over and over again is some of us are gigantic babies. And we say we're going to do some things, we write down goals, we do, and then we say we're going to do them. And then the moment there's any resistance, any challenge or whatever, we go, I don't wanna, I'm not gonna, you can't make me, I'm not gonna. And like, if you really think about it, it's like every time that you don't do what you say you're going to do, you're just a big ass baby around your goals. And so think about the word discipline. At the root, it's disciple, it's to follow. And in order to have true self discipline, you've got to follow the plan, follow the goal, follow the purpose that you set forth at the beginning of the year, regardless of whether you feel like it, regardless of whether your feet hurt, regardless. Discipline is being a disciple to your goals. Discipline is being a disciple to your purpose, to your potential, to your opportunity, to your God given gifts. Every time you deny that, you are violating your God given gifts, your purpose, and you're just delaying the life that you deserve. And you're just extending the suffering of mediocrity, of just being where you're at. And it's really interesting. I mean, we had some people that like, they almost wear like a badge of honor, like, oh, I don't set goals, I just work hard. And I just have to be quiet sometimes because they didn't invite me into that conversation. So I'm just listening from outside in. But here's what I have to say about that. If you don't set goals and you just like to work hard, you're a coward. You're a coward to your own potential. You're a coward to anybody measuring your actual activities versus what you said you would do. People that don't like to set goals like to hide. They have a fear of accountability, personal accountability. And this is all personal stuff, right? And so again, this is, and I just, again, I want to clarify over and over again. I'm not speaking at anyone. I'm sharing with you the conversations that I have to have with myself every single morning when I'm either deciding to track my food or not, whether I'm deciding to take my supplements or not, whether I'm feeling so bad physically, but I'm like, can I still go to the gym and knock out a couple things and hopefully not freak too many people out because I'm coughing the whole time? Like, I'm still going to go. Like, even though I only have 20%, if I can give 20%, is that 100%? Is that going to be enough? But for me, I have to talk myself into, okay, like, I'm not going to start creating a habit of skipping. I just need to create a habit of going. And then when I'm there, I can decide how hard I can go. And then I ask myself every exercise or every rep, do I have a little more? Do I have a little more? What am I holding back? Right? And so Discipline. We talk about it. Motivation, kindling, discipline, big log on the fire. Slow, steady burn. Motivation, kindling. You go to events, motivation, boom. By the time you get home, it's already out. Discipline is that big ass hardwood log that you throw on the fire that takes forever to catch. But once it goes and the coals are there, it's there for hours and hours and hours. It'll keep you there for the rest of the night. Discipline is that, right? And so 4 hacks, 4 ways to booster and bolster your discipline. Number 1, you've got to get really clear on where you're going and what your goals are, right? You got to have a plan. You got to have a destination that's really clear, really compelling, and non-negotiable. Something that excites you and freaks you out. There's been a lot of talk. One of the conventions out there, they were having some stuff on the screen. I was reading some of the slides, and they were talking about this concept of a misogi. Have you guys ever heard of that term, misogi? Jesse Itzler talks about it a lot. And he says every year he has to plan something for himself that is so terrifying and so uncomfortable that it's life-changing, if you will, right? And he created that race that he does, the 292929 or what or 290290. What is it? I forget exactly what it is, but it's a race on a ski mountain somewhere where you got to go up and down the mountain as many times as it is the height of Everest. So it's a race that you've got 24 hours to climb a mountain as many times as it takes to get to Everest. And they do them all over the country. And so he started that just as his misogi, right? And so having a goal or setting yourself up to in such a way that like truly inspires you, but also probably should kind of scare you a little bit, will help you in creating a plan now. Right? So that's hack number 2. So hack number 1 is have something truly clear that you're going after, a direction, something worthwhile, something that won't force you to have to actually change. And then number 2, what's the plan? What is the plan? Work backwards, dissect it, break it down. And not just the monthly, not just the weekly, not just the daily, but sometimes what are the hourly activities that you got to execute to hit that plan? What are the hourly activities you got to execute to hit the plan? And then the thing is, once you've set the plan, you got to just simply say, hey, if I just do what's in front of me in that hour that's in front of me, if I just execute 1 hour at a time, I win. If I execute 1 hour at a time, I transform. If I execute 1 hour at a time, I'm changing the legacy of my family, right? So getting it down to just what's in front of you. When I'm doing like, I don't know if any other distance runners or athletes out there, and sometimes I like to bring these things in to the conversation, is that when I'm doing a long run and I'm adding a 10 or 15% to the end of each run, and when you're in a marathon training, some of the training has you do 20 to 22 mile runs before the race itself. And they're supposed to be slower than you're normally going to race. So they take forever. And it's not fun to be out there for 4.5 hours doing 20 miles up and down the street. And so there's a lot of times where I'm just like, I'm going to get an Uber. I'm pretty beat up. I'm done. But I can't. So then what do? I go telephone pole to telephone pole. That's it. I just look up the sidewalk to the next telephone pole and I say, hey, man, if I can get to that next telephone pole, I'm good. Then I get to the next telephone pole and I'm like, all right, I can do 2 more telephone poles. And all I do is I just stare at that next telephone pole. And I say, when I get to that next telephone pole, I'm going to walk for 15 seconds. I'm going to reset. I'm going to walk for 15 seconds. And then when I'm walking, sometimes I'll say, I don't need 15 seconds. I'll just do 12. Go. And I'll just take off a little earlier. And I'm like, all right, next telephone pole, right? So if you've got a great goal and you've got a plan that's broken down enough to what's in front of you, sometimes you just got to execute the next telephone pole. So hack number 3, you've got to get ruthless around eliminating distractions. And that's eliminating time-wasting people, eliminating environments that don't support your goals, and be careful who you allow proximity to when you're in transformation mode. There's going to be people that are well-meaning that have a lot of toxic positivity. What do I mean by toxic positivity? They're going to see you working, they're going to see you sacrificing, they're going to see you suffering a little bit, and they're going to go, "Hey man, take it easy. You know what? You did really good. You've earned a break, you've earned a drink, you've earned this pizza, you've earned whatever it is." But what they're unconsciously doing is trying to pull you back to where they are. Guys, transformation can be uncomfortable and can be lonely sometimes because what you're doing by your commitment and your discipline is you're highlighting all the fears, the inadequacies, and all the bullshit reasons everyone else hasn't hit their goals. Everyone else gets to start feeling really uncomfortable around you whenever you're starting to crush. And that can feel lonely, and that can sometimes derail us from our thing. Sometimes we don't hit our goals because there's some well-meaning people around us that make us feel guilty about it. And so instead of making them feel weird about it, we pull back. Or instead of asking them or inviting them to step up, we pull back. Don't do that, guys. Don't do that. Lastly, and that's just this, you got to elicit and you've got to invite accountability. You got to find yourself around people that will inspect, that will check you, that will check on you, and that will hold up the mirror for you with love, but with candor. And so what's interesting is somebody posted about like, hey, if anyone has any experience with 75 hard, I'd love to hear your take on it. And I said, I'm happy to share with you. However, if you're planning on adjusting it even a little bit, I can't help you. If you're planning on modifying it and making it, well, 75 my way, 75, ew. I don't want to hear about your version of 75, whatever. Don't. Because it's that modification piece, you're just simply modifying your life. Like you're modifying it down of what it could be, of your opportunity. So number one, have a wildly compelling and exciting and actually terrifying goal sometimes. Sometimes we get like goal setting can be really weird sometimes because like there's a lot of conversation of like, well, what if I set something too high and then I can't hit it and then I feel down about it? Be like, okay, well, what if you actually set something really high and actually committed to the activities and the timeline that it would take to do it? Imagine what that would look like. And because oftentimes we're resisting a high goal because you already know you're going to give up. And so you don't want to actually put a goal that you like there's a part of your subconscious that knows you can do it if this time you actually committed to the discipline. But then the version of you that always shows up and cuts the corners is like, yeah, but if you don't do it, then that's really negative, and we don't like negativity, and we want to foster positive life. And stop. What would your life look like if you truly showed up for yourself this year? Again, this is my conversation with myself this morning when I was in my own poopy pants at the gym, just feeling like crap, not knowing if I'd be able to make this call. My nose is bleeding. I've been coughing all night. I haven't slept in 5 days. Having a plan. So, massive goal, having a plan. And here's the thing. Find someone that's been on the path and then just execute on that plan. So many of us are like, we look up to these certain groups, these high performing teams, these high performing individuals, and they're like, oh man, I'm so excited. I can't wait to join this team so I can get into the same level of production. And they're like, yeah, cool. Well, guess what? Here's what we do. We show up every day at this time. We say things this way. We track it this often. We report it every single day. And you're like, but I didn't want it that bad. I thought you said you wanted to be a high performer. This is what high performance is. Here's the plan. Execute. What's the telephone pole in front of you? Get to the next one and to the next one every day. Every day. Eliminate distractions. Put yourself in an environment of productivity. Get yourself some accountability, and then become a disciple of your future self. Become a disciple of the life that you deserve. Become a disciple of your goals. Thoughts, ahas, takeaways.
You're on fire today, but in a good way. I like it.
Yeah. A little
Some we all
spicy,
probably needed to hear. You were spicy, yes, for sure.
spicy Matt showed up today.
I like what you said when you said get ruthless around eliminating distractions.
Yeah.
Sometimes distractions can look like something good, and you have to get just if you're really, really clear on your goals and you've got that plan, you'll start to recognize that yeah, it might be good, but is it really serving your purpose for right now? Is it really supporting you in what you want to do? That's hard for me anyways. That's really hard because I feel like
Because you're a big people pleaser, according
that's what I was
to
about to say because I feel like I'm going to let people down if I eliminate this thing. But I'm like, man, is it really where I need to be spending my time? That's kind of something I've been evaluating over the past couple, forever, but a lot more recently. And I'm like, okay, I can see things where I need to eliminate. I see areas where I need to eliminate some things. And like my heart starts to pound and I start to sweat and I can't breathe. And I'm like, oh my gosh. But then I have a conversation about like, okay, I need to change some things. And it's like, okay, cool. I'm like, man, why did I get so worked up about eliminating that when it wasn't as hard, and now I can move forward even faster with towards my goals, right? Does that make sense?
And what's funny is you're sitting here saying that you struggle with that. And yet, a few weeks ago, you were giving me a pep talk about doing that exact thing and how to set up those boundaries. Like you're really good at coaching on that, even though it's something that you feel like you have an issue behind the scenes with yourself, like maintaining for your own self.
I always know how to fix everybody else. It's my own. Like same thing with parenting, right? I can tell my kids, here's exactly what you need to do all these things and get this and whatever. And or like if they're sick, I know exactly what to do. Like we do things pretty holistically. I know exactly all the things to give them to help them get better, but then I suffer for like 12 days and I'm like, what am I doing? Taking care of everybody else and not doing what I need to do for me. Same same thing.
It is so much easier to help others, to teach others, to serve others, to pray for others than it is to do any of that for myself. It is, I guess I handed that down to you and I apologize.
Thanks, Mom. But I think it goes back to what Matt said. It's the people pleasing, right? If because yeah, we want to make sure everybody else is happy to our own detriment. But if we're not taking care of ourselves, then how well are we actually going to take care of everybody else? This is a daily conversation in my head. So
Same. And as a mom, when all of y'all were younger, I put myself on the back burner and all of y'all in your activities on the front. I didn't know it was okay to take care of myself first. Learning that late in life.
the number one way that I can show my love and my dedication to my family is through my own physical and mental well-being. That's it. Period. Stop. That's it.
I think it's funny that there's so many of us that feel like self-care is selfish, but it's actually the most
Selfless.
selfless thing you can do.
Matt told one of the first conversations we had when I first started coaching with him was kind of around something similar. I said, something feels so selfish. And he said, okay, let's talk about that word. He said, why is it a bad word? I was like, well, because it means all I care about is me. He said, no, it just means about self. It doesn't, all the negative connotation around it is something that we have put on it. Our culture, our world has put on it, but it really just means about yourself. It's not a bad thing. It's just taking care of yourself. I'm like, oh, that was very like that just really shifted something in my brain. Whenever I start feeling that, oh, I'm being selfish, I'm like, wait a second. I have to step back and think about that. Like, what does that actually mean?
I was just gonna say I felt, I mean, not that you were, bro, but like when you said you have to set specific goals, have a plan, and attack those goals, and I was like, I'm just in grind mode. Like I'm not really fixating on attacking the goals that I set. And am I measuring and tracking that progress to know if I'm being accountable? to getting to those goals. Because I could get a whole quarter in and be like, oh, geez, have I made progress toward my goal? It feels like I'm working every day, but how do I know unless I'm actually looking at the accountability piece? So
Yeah.
that was big for me.
Yeah, right on, dude. Good awareness. I feel like Angela and Ramil are like watching their own thing. They're just like laughing. And what are we missing over there?
I'm distracting Ramil with my own thoughts, and
So you're violating number 3 already?
I am. I am.
Any other thoughts, ahas from today's conversation? How does this sit with you? How does this align with the rest of your year?
I kind of got, and when you said don't be a coward, set goals, don't hide and be accountable. I guess that kind of struck me as I never thought of it as not setting goals as being a coward, but that makes sense. I mean, if you're not setting goals, you're not making yourself accountable. You're just going at it. I don't know, like you're just going. You're not making any, I don't know how to explain it, what I'm thinking in my mind, but you are being a coward because you're just kind of going at it.
Just kind of going with the flow.
Yeah. So
And
anyhow, that kind of hit me.
the only thing that goes with the flow are dead fish.
Well, I don't want to be a dead fish. So
I listen to this podcast a lot, and this girl, she's always talking about doing a time audit of what you're doing.
Yeah.
Like, if you feel like you are busy, but you're not being productive, like, sit down and every 15 or 30 minutes, write down what you're actually doing. Like, if you're driving around and going to brokers opens and you're not closing any deals, like, just because you make 5 phone calls a day doesn't mean you're doing jack.
Yep. Yep.
I was just going to say, I also found some personal connection with the removing distractions piece because I've put a lot of effort into that lately. And I was thinking about the line that I heard in a book recently around just because we're not friends doesn't mean that we're enemies. And I love that, right? Because it's like as you go through life, where I was with friends I had 10 years ago, 20 years ago, where we were similarly aligned, we're nowhere near each other now. And that's fine. It can be okay. It doesn't have to be like we hate each other. We just have different desires and different goals and different dreams. And we both have to be okay with that.
Word. Anyone else? So I'd love to put some accountability out there for you guys. I'd love to hear what some of your big, hairy, wild, audacious goals are for this year. And if you need help putting together a plan, there's plenty of people on this call that can probably give you an idea of how to set up your telephone poles and execute if you're courageous enough to step into it. Otherwise, we just keep going with the flow. We'll be here Wednesday, same time, same channel. Later, y'all.